Is McLaren really behind Mercedes and Ferrari by 2026? Or are we facing a masterful move of concealment and strategic development that no one saw coming? Formula One is a sport of microscopic details, technical interpretations, and sometimes gigantic misunderstandings. That's exactly what happened in December 2025, when the F1 community exploded with the results of the post-season test in Abu Dhabi. The numbers didn't lie. Kimi Antonelli, the young Mercedes prodigy, had recorded a lap time astonishingly faster than Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. In a normal context, this would have simply been a highlight for Mercedes. But in this test, the impact was much deeper. From the first moment the times were published, the analyses began to appear on social networks, specialized forums, and technical news portals. Was McLaren, Constructors' champion in 2024, now almost a second per lap behind its German rival? It didn't take long for the alarms to ring. Had Mercedes found a revolutionary solution for 2026? Was McLaren already at a technical disadvantage before the new regulations even came into force? The perception was immediate and devastating. McLaren had been humiliated in terms of performance in a session that should have been experimental. It was as if the king had lost his crown without even fighting. At first glance, the analysis seemed logical. Same drivers, same track conditions, apparently similar cars. So why such a difference? The problem was assuming the cars were actually comparable. What was hidden behind that time difference was not a question of power, nor of chassis design, nor of talent behind the wheel. It was a combination of specific regulations, strategic engineering decisions, and a calculated choice of what to show and what to hide from the world. And most fans and even some analysts did not understand that at first. Because to understand what happened in Abu Dhabi, you had to look beyond the stopwatches. It was necessary to observe the configurations of the cars, the technical modifications applied, and above all, the specific regulations that govern this test. Only then did the times of Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren begin to make sense. And what seemed like a disaster for Woking, in reality hit a perfectly measured strategy. This is the essence of modern Formula One. It is not always the one who goes the fastest who wins, but the one who plays technical chess best. McLaren had carefully chosen which pieces to move, while other teams decided to show their game with everything on the table. And that, as we will see, would have consequences later. Is it possible that the difference seen in Abu Dhabi was an optical illusion? A speed mirage created by variable regulations? Everything points to yes. And that apparent defeat could be, in retrospect, one of the champion team's smartest moves. What very few understood when analyzing the results of the test in Abu Dhabi is that the cars used by the teams were not completely new cars, much less did they represent the definitive versions of the 2026 models. What was seen on the track were what in the technical jargon of Formula One are known as mule cars. Hybrid cars, transitional versions between the current generation and the next, modified specifically to test elements of the future regulations without compromising the active development of the official cars. But what separated the teams was not simply the use of these technical mules, but how they interpreted them. The FIA established a set of extremely specific guidelines for this test, designed to protect the experimental tires that Pirelli was validating for the 2026 season. One of the most critical points of these rules was the maximum speed limit of 300 km per hour on a straight line, imposed exclusively on cars that did not mount a functional active aerodynamic system. This point was key. The 2026 tires are designed for a Formula One with much less downforce on the straight. With the current 2025 spoilers, the cars would generate too much load at high speed, causing dangerous stress to the experimental tires. To avoid this problem, the FIA imposed this speed restriction using electronic limiters. But at the same time, it introduced a crucial exception. If a team could mount an aerodynamic system that replicated 2020 SIXS straight line mode, also known as Aero Activa, the limiter was removed entirely. And that's where everything changed. Mercedes showed up to the test with a prototype of an active front wing. At first glance, it seemed like just a rudimentary adaptation, but its impact was enormous. The system was mounted through exposed tubes at the front of the car, allowing the angle of attack of the spoiler to be modified in real time, reducing air resistance on the straights. Ferrari, for its part, came up with a more refined and hidden solution, but with the same purpose: activate the SLM to eliminate the speed limiter. Both teams could exceed 300 km per hour without restrictions. Not McLaren. What happened in Abu Dhabi was not just a technical anecdote. It was the first tangible chapter of what promises to be one of the most disruptive seasons in the recent history of Formula One. The year 2026. There will be a completely new regulation, in which active aerodynamics, energy balance and efficiency will be more important than ever. And the post-season test has just offered us a clear sample of who is understanding the new direction, who is improvising, and who is quietly building an elusive lead. From a technical perspective, the results of the Abu Dhabi test force us to completely rethink any prediction for 2026. Until now, many assumed that Mercedes would fight at the top again only through inertia, that Ferrari would maintain its progressive improvement, and that McLaren would have to defend its crown. But what this test reveals is that you can no longer look at the future only from the present. There is now a new set of rules, new technologies that require full integration, and an adaptation process that only some teams are managing with true long-term vision. The concept of active aerodynamics is much more than a speed trick. Its effective implementation requires absolute harmony between software, sensors, mechanical actuators, predictive control logic, and the physical structure of the chassis. And that level of integration is not achieved with a simple modification to the front wing. The car needs to be reimagined from the wind tunnel to the onboard electronics. The teams currently testing these systems on the track are still in a trial and error phase. Meanwhile, McLaren seems to be choosing to develop that integration away from the spotlight, minimizing media noise, but maximizing design precision. And it's not just a technical issue. What happened in Abu Dhabi also sends political and psychological signals within the paddock. In a sport where external pressure can destabilize even the strongest organizations, McLaren has done exactly the opposite. She has absorbed the pressure, let others grab the momentary headlines, and kept for herself what really matters: narrative control over her own evolution. That type of maturity is not improvised. It is the result of a leadership that understands that the true championship does not begin to be won in March, but now, in December, in the data that no one sees and in the decisions that no one questions, until it is too late. At the other extreme, the test also exposes some tensions that may arise in teams that chose to show their cards too early. Mercedes and Ferrari gained valuable data, yes, but they also ran the risk of having shown solutions that are not yet production ready. Every visible centimeter of Antonelli's active wing can be scanned, analyzed and replicated. Every technical analysis published in specialized media can end up benefiting its rivals. And if McLaren manages to integrate a more efficient, cleaner, and more reliable system in the 2026 winter tests, it will have done in the shadows what others tried to demonstrate in public. Furthermore, the human element cannot be ignored. This test has also redefined the public perception of pilots. Kimi Antonelli, driving a car with a technical advantage, left a clear message about its potential. But both Norris and Piastri demonstrated something perhaps more valuable: mettle under pressure. Riding knowing that your times will be manipulated by the technical context, and still delivering an impeccable development program, speaks of a professional maturity that will be vital when the real time comes to compete on equal terms. In the end, what happened in Abu Dhabi during the 2025 postseason test was not a simple test of lap times. It was a turning point in the Formula One narrative, an event that could have much deeper ramifications than many realize. What seemed like a simple technical test has become a large-scale strategic play, where McLaren, with its hidden approach, has managed to avoid the spotlight while laying the foundations for what could be dominance in 2026. So a key question arises: what does this mean for the rest of the grid? Mercedes and Ferrari, having shown their progress more obviously, could be too exposed. Despite great advances in the field of active aerodynamics, can they really integrate those systems stably and efficiently? And as for McLaren, how much of what we saw in Abu Dhabi is real? How much of that strategy will be key to your success in the coming years? This test has made it clear that the battle for 2026 will not only be won on the slopes, but also in the data, in the management of information, and in the ability of each team to hide its cards until the last moment. In a sport where every detail counts, McLaren has shown that it knows how to play this game in a different way. While others seek immediate glory, they seem to be playing the long game, building their way into the future without showing everything they have in the bank. Leave me your opinion in the comments what you think about all this.